All right. All right, sound's working. Putting a rogue nicotine check. Take care of some housekeeping here. All right, that's good to go. Cool. All right, so basically, if anybody jumps in here, I am going to watch the Shawn Ryan interview with Pete Hegseth. I've already watched it. I watched it when it dropped 5 days ago because I basically watch every Shawn Ryan show that drops. But we're going to watch that. First, I kind of want to check Twitter real quick. I do know that the Senate elected dipshit for Senate majority, so that's a bummer. Let's see what we got here. I don't think there's any other important news before we jump into the interview. Yeah, Matt Walsh is correct. So we're about to watch that interview. I don't see any important news, except for them picking that Senate Majority Leader. That's really whack. But whatever, you can't win everything. Hopefully Trump can navigate those waters. But let's jump into it. So I kind of skipped the introduction, but we can go ahead and go back. Screw it.
Very narrow instances, but for the most part, especially under Biden, they've brought all the civil service protections against the law. By the way, the law states you can fire. They just choose not to because all the.
So there was an executive order that Trump the law says you can fire bureaucrats, but Trump came in and he put an executive order. Basically, what he was doing, like if you weren't doing your job properly or you were screwing over veterans in the VA, you were out. Like he had free reign to fire you, and Trump said he's bringing that back. So I'm sure Pete's excited about that.
Political appointees abide by the rules of
just for some backdrop. Pete has served 20 years in the military. I think he retired as a major if he retired. 2 Gold Star captain. He also has done extensive work with the VA and trying to help veterans, as you're going to hear in this situation. And the government and the bureaucratic establishment, especially the VA, hate him. So the Pentagon hates him. So if you're wondering why he's getting all this pushback, that he's not qualified, it's because he's very qualified. Very qualified. And they do not like a qualified person being put in charge in a Trump cabinet.
The unions, and so they want to play nice. And so even though they could expedite firings of VA officials who are, I don't know, like watching porn at work or like not serving vets in a timely manner, they usually don't. So it was the right thing to do. I think it could be reapplied under Trump very effectively, frankly, across government, but most importantly at the VA. But in the hands of Democrats, they're not doing anything with it.
Go figure. And you currently serve in the Individual Ready Reserve.
Well, I did as of, not anymore. I'm out now.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Yes.
Congrats. I'm out too.
Do you go, let's talk about the VA. Do you go to the VA?
I do not.
I don't either.
No.
Why do you think the bureaucrats are fighting so hard just to, like, what's the problem? Like, why don't they want to fix the fucking VA?
Oh, it's a permanent feeding trough.
Exactly.
And, you see of high-paying.
So as a veteran, I have dealt with the VA extensively at this point. They do not care about you. These government workers, they're on the government tit. They know they're getting paid anyway. And without the threat of being fired like Trump brought in, they don't care. They started caring a little bit more when Trump was in because they were under threat of being fired. So I can't wait for that to come back.
Jobs and stable jobs that you can't be fired from with an upper echelon of brass numbering in the thousands that get paid more than, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And they're great, easy, comfy jobs, many of which are now remote, even at the VA. Since COVID, they've never gone back. And then the problem is it's a feedback loop. You know, you and I would probably talk a lot about the military-industrial complex, all these outside, the companies that influence the way we procure weapons and the way we fight. Well, there's a veterans industrial complex too.
Yep.
And, you know, the traditional names, the VFW, the Legion.
The VA and the veteran industrial complex is the biggest, or at least the second biggest complex within the federal government. The bureaucracy that's associated with the VA is extensive, and it is hell. Trump was actually starting to clean a lot of this up when he was in his first term, and I can't wait for him to bring those policies back.
AMVETS, you name them. They've got big offices in Washington, D.C., and they are invested in one thing, namely a bigger VA budget. A bigger VA budget means more programs that they collaborate with. They say it is to serve their members, but if you talk to their members, which is what we actually did,
it's just more money for them.
Hey, we don't care what VFW headquarters thinks. We care what the post level thinks. What do those guys think? They're saying, hey, why am I driving 200 miles to go to some hospital where I'll wait for months for an appointment when I could be seen inside my own community if the dollars followed me and I wanted to do that locally? Well, the VA hates that because it would, heaven forbid, their budget might reduce or their facilities might not be used as robustly, then they don't keep getting the money.
This is why
the vets groups don't.
The VA lobbyists put in a lot, and I'm talking about a lot of money for Trump to lose the election. That is the one thing they did not want, is Trump to win and start issuing these executive orders, basically putting their jobs on the line again. They fear that. So the VA lobbyists actually worked very hard to keep Trump out of office. Thank God they failed.
Don't benefit as much from that. So it's a typical swampy feedback loop. The politicians don't really know how the VA works, and so they just want a good press conference, and that means just writing bigger checks. So the whole thing never, but they get to feel good about it, right? Oh, I support the vets. I support funding for the VA. But is the VA working? Like, can you get in on time? Usually the healthcare is actually pretty good at the VA. Once you get in, once you get to see a doctor, once you have a stable relationship with a doctor.
Yeah, it's really hard to get to that
but
point.
Getting through and getting in,
trust me,
is half the challenge. And so it's a big problem.
Man.
It took me 6 months to get an appointment just to get the insurance part squared away, and then another 6 months to get my first real checkup for the issues I was dealing with. It's a swamp. It's the epitome of swamp.
I went there one time. Well, I guess more than once, but after I got, you know, my benefits.
Yeah.
I went there one time for an appointment, and I was like, I'll buy my own health insurance like this.
And I have my own
I'm
private
not
health
doing this.
insurance now.
I don't need any more pills. Sorry. Thank you.
The VA
I've
is
only heard
pointless.
one thing good come out of the VA, and that's, have you heard of this Dr. Freeze guy?
Yes.
He's written a book on, they're calling this, it's like I'm going to butcher this, so whoever's listening that knows about this, don't kill me here, but it's like another, it seems to me like they've not repurposed. It's a different PTSD, I guess is basically what I'm saying, called operator syndrome, and they're tying in PTSD with
just the
traumatic
same thing,
brain
really.
injuries, but not like massive traumatic brain injuries, like stuff you get from shooting a Carl Gustav or slapping breacher charges on doors a lot. I'm not talking like a big VBID.
I think the
or something.
MQ9 guys are dealing with a
Sleep
lot of that.
dep,
The
and
Predator
they're tying
drones.
it all into like this new form of PTSD. It sounds pretty interesting, and
Well, dude, if that's what the VA exists to do,
yeah, well,
right?
Well,
yeah,
that's what they're supposed to exist to do.
Specialize on stuff for guys that saw things that the outside world doesn't really understand, and focus on delivering the care that those guys and gals need. But right now we fund a VA bureaucracy, a healthcare system that, you know, I mean, the outside world does a good job treating diabetes. The outside world does a good job treating cancer. Those aren't necessarily veteran-specific illnesses.
That's iffy.
So if the VA would specialize more on the things it does really well, it's comparative advantage, and you fund those things, and then you don't have to have the country's largest healthcare system that's not run very well, and instead you allow the private market to provide for vets that can be seen in a timely manner. That's We wrote a whole report on it called the Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force. It feels like forever ago. It was like 2014. It was a bipartisan deal. And that's exactly what we said. That's where the name came from. I don't know exactly what he does exactly, but
We're going to skip a little bit of this in a minute. I want to get to the wokeness.
They're the ones that should be the focus. And then on the general healthcare side, that can be done other ways.
Yeah. What would you personally like to see happen
This is the part I wanted to get to.
in the VA or to the VA?
Well, first of all, I would. That's a great question, and we wrote a whole report on it. And I guess in a perfect world, I would have, like I just said, I would have it focus on its core mission, and then I would. The critics would say, "Oh, you want to privatize the VA?" That's not the idea.
I want to
The idea
privatize
is to effectively let the dollars follow the veteran. So, and there is the Mission Act did that Trump passed, which the VA is trying to squelch.
What is the problem with privatizing
There
the VA?
is no problem.
I mean, all of the,
it would be better
as
for
far
everybody.
as I know, and I've interviewed a lot of vets that have done a lot of kind of wazoo, off the wall treatments that actually work, but all these treatments that are making major headway, like psychedelics,
Ibogaine.
none of this is being developed from within the VA. It's all
personal experience. I was depressed. I'm a veteran. I was depressed for a while. I was able to finally get my hands on this treatment, and I still have my ups and downs, but my depression is virtually gone at this point. Like, I'm pretty happy. I have my highs and my lows, but I'm not depressed. I'm actually working. I'm going to the gym. I'm working all the time. I'm able to do this now. Like, I wasn't doing a lot of videos on this small channel because I was so depressed all the time. And now I'm wanting to do things. Like, psychedelics helped me with that. I microdosed. I did some macro dosing. I'm not. I see the benefits of macrodosing. I'd rather not trip balls. But the microdosing, man, I did that for a while and it really helped, dude. It pulled me out of it. It pulled me out of it. Now, I've seen it go the opposite way with some people. Some people, you would think it would help, but it ends up not really helping them because it doesn't help everybody. But I mean, it helps a lot of people, especially Ibogaine. Some people, they just, I don't understand. Something just doesn't switch. And then they abuse it. So I've seen a lot of that. But Ibogaine, you don't really abuse. There is no abuse quality to Ibogaine. I mean, if you're abusing Ibogaine, you're just psychotic. Like, I don't understand how you would do that. But I do know people that have abused shrooms and DMT and stuff like that. It doesn't work out. But if you tailor it to actually treat yourself, it can have great effects. I mean, it had great effects on me. One of my great friends in the Navy, he's currently doing the same thing, and it's changed his life. I mean, he's not having his problems anymore. He's happy. Every time I talk to him, he's happy. And these are people that were depressed. I mean, one day I might get on here and talk more deeply about my own personal issues in the past, especially in the military, but psychedelics can help people. And the fact that the VA is a government institution, they don't allow this type of treatment. And that's why I support privatizing the VA.
Privates, a lot of it's out of the country. We can't even do the shit that helps us in the country. I'm one of them. I did psychedelics. I did Ibogaine in Mexico, and I mean, changed my life in so many different ways. I haven't had a drop of booze in 2.5 years. I didn't even go down there for that.
I don't even think about alcohol.
Way more in the moment.
I used to think about it all the time.
Anyways, whatever. None of these non-traditional treatments or things that are working for traumatic brain injury, PTSD, anxiety, all these things that are, that guys are dealing with coming out, none of it's being cured by the VA.
I mean, SSRIs are making it worse.
The government is not here to help.
And so why would anybody...
Hey, that statement qualifies him already. Sorry, but When you talk like that, I'm like, all right.
Other than I get the VA employees and the bureaucrats within it, but why would anybody be against privatizing veteran health care? It's just better health.
Let me tell you this. That's exactly right. Nothing you said is wrong. I was in 2016.
They lose those government
27 I was
pensions
under
associated
consideration
with
by
having a
Trump to be
government
his
job.
VA secretary.
Nice.
I was interviewed multiple times. In fact, I was down to the final 2. And, go up to Trump Tower, up the elevator, sit with him, talk about it. And ultimately, I think he thought I was a little young and all that. But I remember he called me at one point in the process, and he said, Pete, I want to pick you. I want to pick you, but there's one problem. Why do all the veterans groups hate you? And I sort of laughed. And he goes, no, but they hate you. And I'm like, well, Mr. President, let me tell you why. Because outside the box thinking of, say, providing private choice for veterans is a threat, complete threat to the ecosystem around the government bureaucracy and the VA and the veterans groups. They exist to defend their territory. And they'll say, oh, it's for the betterment of the vets. Well, if vets are getting better treatment from non-conventional places, why aren't we exploring that? Well, the bureaucracy can't handle that. Well, it's not the existing system. It's not where most of the money comes from. It doesn't support the bricks and mortar facilities that they want to keep.
Yep.
The importance becomes keeping the facilities as opposed to what is
everything
the
he's saying
that
is
the vets
spot
are
on.
getting. So I had I know I had overwhelming support from veterans across the country who were thankful who believed that Veterans Choice would unshackle them from driving 400 miles for a basic treatment when they could get it 10 miles from their house and the government pays for it. Or the idea that if you're abusing a vet, a VA official should be fired. So the solutions are simple.
Another
It's
Trump
choice
era
and
order.
accountability. Vets have choice, and people that aren't doing their job or doing it poorly get fired. But government doesn't do either of those things.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do that, you better be ready to go to the mat.
Not until Trump.
In a way that's uglier than I think people can imagine. Everyone looks at the veteran space and says, can't we get along? Can't we all agree that we love vets? Of course. Well, if it's not spending more, the VA has the budget of the VA is twice the size of the Marine Corps.
That's insane.
Massive
Is it
budget.
really?
Yes,
That's
it's huge.
insane.
It's the second largest federal department of the federal government.
That's
It's absolutely
What's number one?
the DOD.
Wow,
So
I
it's
had no
DOD
idea.
and VA.
So he's telling me the VA is the second largest federal institution, and these veterans are still struggling like this. Over 20-something veterans unalive themselves a day, and the VA has the second largest budget of any federal institution. That's just downright unfucking acceptable. We can't have that. What are we doing? There is some more nuggets in here, but we're gonna skip to the wokeness in the military because I can't go for 3 hours. So,
But well, let's move on to. I was gonna save this to the end because this is what I'm most excited to talk about. But let's talk about the War on Warriors. Let's talk about the book. Where are you going with this?
Well, the idea of the book, I would say,
I just
I
got
wrote a
the
book about
audio
education,
book
I've written some books about
of
politics,
this.
and it just didn't feel like the right time to kind of assess where we were in the military, especially after 20 years of more or less ongoing combat. And it takes a while for the dust to clear and to get a sense of like, hey, what happened? But then things, under Obama, but really after Trump and then in Biden, you start to look around and you say, wow. And it happened really fast. It happened slowly and then it happened fast. You start to realize this institution that I love, that I gave so many years to, that you gave so many years to, and I say that humbly because I did far less than so many.
I know where he's
did
going,
my
and I feel the
one
same
little
way.
thing that, as part of a bigger effort over 20 years. But this institution's going sideways.
Yep.
It doesn't, and you hear time and time again.
Which institution?
The Department of Defense, the military, the Army, pick your service.
All right. So this very statement that he made about the Department of Defense going sideways is why they are freaking out that he just got chosen to represent the Department of Defense. They know that he is coming in with a mandate by the veterans who voted for Trump, who put him in that position. He's coming to clean house, and they don't want it because they spent years now completely destroying the military with the woke DEI agenda, and he's going to come in and start fixing things, and they are freaking out in the media calling him unqualified. A 20-plus year, 2 Silver Star veteran, unqualified.
And it started with a central question, the book. Would I want my kids, would I recommend my kids join the Army today or the military today? And that used to be an open and shut case for me.
My dad used to say it all the time.
Hell yeah. Like, I want my kids to have the kind of ethos where they would. And we've got a blended family of 5 boys and 2 girls, so that's a real question. You know,
I joined the
oldest is
military
14,
because of my
youngest is
father.
7. Like, they're not that far away from having the opportunity to make that decision. Would I recommend that? And it used to be, of course I would. And over the last couple of years, it became clear, like, would I? I don't know. And you talk to more and more guys.
And that's so
they're having
sad,
the
man.
They're either a hell no, or they're saying, yeah, for the first time in my life, I'm in the family business. It was my dad, my grandfather, they all served, and I'm second guessing whether I want my kids to. And so the book kind of helped me figure that out. And the last chapter of the book is a letter to my boys about whether I would want them to serve. But, and I can lay that out, but I didn't write that chapter until the end. So I wrote the whole book, and then I was like, okay, I want to look at the depth of what's happening to our warriors, because it's not, the book isn't just how the military went woke. There's plenty of those examples.
Yeah,
and
there's
we
a lot.
feature them prominently on Fox.
I have
and
my
you've
own
seen them, and
personal
just the
examples.
nonsense. The deeper question is, how did the military allow itself to go woke?
Yes.
How did our general...
Because the people that have been running the Department of Defense have purposely been instituting these DEI woke fucking policies, and they have been gutting the military. My dad, I joined the military because of my father. I got out during the Trump administration because I saw what was going on, and I hated it, and I knew I wouldn't be able to exist in this military. My last assignment in the military, they were trying to make me find a trans safe space for the command. And I basically refused to do it. And I realized then I'm not going to be able to exist in the current Navy in its form. And I got out. I'm a pilot. I wanted to go fly for the Navy, but me and my dad talked about it. My dad's in Army. He's in the Army now. He's about to retire. And he's like, we don't know if that's the best decision. Right now, in the military in its current form, my dream to go be a military pilot, we don't know if this is the military I want to serve. So I haven't done it. I'm hoping things change, but my time's kind of running out. I'm 30 now. But I am still a pilot, and I guess I could try, but I'm not going to be able to speak like I speak. I'm not going to be able to talk about anything or like do the things I love because I would be walking on eggshells the whole time. So what he's talking about is completely right. I mean, this is why they are mad that he was chosen in this position, because they know he knows the mandate, he knows how to fix it, or he has some ideas of how to fix it, and they are terrified that he's going to come and throw out all this woke bullshit.
Class. How did our military academies, how did military leaders who are expected to live by an ethos and a code, they're in the job of meritocracy and lethality, of excellence, of no excuses, of equality and unity, not equity and diversity is ours. The dumbest phrase on planet Earth in the military is our diversity is our strength.
Yep.
I
hated that term.
Our unity is what unites us, our unity of effort, our ability to say, yes, we're different, but we come together as a team to accomplish a mission. So I spent the better part of a year and a half talking to vets, and not just vets, but connecting through a network of a lot of guys I know. I host my show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in New York. So I've got Saturday afternoon wide open. And I spent, for months, my Saturdays just on the phone, off the record, anonymously with guys in service.
Someone who actually talks to the veterans is unqualified, apparently.
Junior officers, senior officers, all branches, MOSs, eras, but mostly guys in right now, generals, privates. And all the same themes came out. Standards are dropping. The woke stuff is everywhere.
Yep.
I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I heard that all the time. Eggshells. I'm a commander. I walk
just
on
said
eggshells.
that.
I train commanders. They're walking on eggshells. They're afraid of one misstep on one identification or one
Yep.
gender thing or one racial thing or one trans thing.
My father is one of them. My father is a major in the Army right now, and he's walking on eggshells every day. But he's getting to the point where he doesn't give a shit. But I hope more people get to that point.
And the priorities are upside down on what the units are focusing on. And every single one of those distractions means we're less good at our job.
Yep.
Which is supposed to be close with and destroy the enemy on behalf of our nation and bring our boys home. That's all I care about. That's what I want our military focused on. And so, yeah, I tell a few of my own stories in the book, but the book's not about me
Hey,
at
thanks
all.
for liking
How
the
do you
stream,
think
guys. I
that
appreciate that.
Is happening.
Well, it's a long story. So well, I think it's because they're ideologues who want to bring a meritocracy to heel. That's where I think it starts. I think you have politicians who don't want to tolerate an institution. First, they want to use it to tinker. And then they also don't want to tolerate an institution that's antithetical to their social.
They're using our military as an experiment. They're experimenting on people using the military. I was seeing it when I was still in, during the Trump administration. They were actively subverting every order Trump was giving, and they were using our military members to experiment on. That is what's happening. They're doing social experiments on the military. I witnessed it.
Experiments. Because the military, I mean, the book lays this out. Of course, like the integration of the military racially was a huge success. It was a huge success because black men and Hispanic men and others can perform just as well as white guys.
Yes.
In any capacity that they're given. So the reality of life reinforced that the bigotry we saw on the outside should not be tolerated inside the military, and the military did a great job doing that. But now we're
And it
pushing
wasn't
boundaries
seen.
and
You didn't
lots
see
of
it when I
different
was
levels that are different than that because men and women are different. Because being transgendered in the military causes complications and differences. And the book kind of lays out the common arguments that those on the left or others make, which are baked in social justice. So it started, you saw it under Clinton with the tinkering of Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the reasons for those changes. And I talked to some of the people involved in when that was changed. But it really started to accelerate under Obama. And you saw it you saw the trans stuff come at the end of the Obama administration. You saw the women in combat come at the end of the Obama administration.
I joined at the ass end of the Obama administration, and I was in when Trump was elected. We started going to freaking, like, LGBTQ seminars. Like I said a minute ago, I had to go locate a trans space for the command that I refused to do. I got in trouble. I got reprimanded for being so pro-Trump, openly pro-Trump, even after he was elected. This was stuff that was going on. Like, it was all about LGBTQ, BLM, and if you talk about Trump, you're the enemy. That's what was going on when I was in. I got out in 2018, and that was starting to run rampant.
Administration, it's because they looked around at the bureaucracies that they controlled in Washington, and the one that was that they didn't control. The Obama spent a disproportionate amount of time focusing on the Pentagon. They were skeptical of leadership and eventually brought in political appointees and generals who would do their bidding the way they wanted, which, as you know, in a top-down organization changes the ethos
Looks like I
of
got
the
some
whole thing.
breaking news.
So the book is meant to pull the whole curtain back, mostly from Obama.
So it does look like Trump is picking Marco Rubio. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet, though, but it's starting to look that way. It's not the pick I would choose, but
Obama forward and explain
we'll see
how the army that I enlisted in, or that I swore an oath in 2001 and was commissioned in 2003, looks a lot different than the army of today.
Yep.
Because we're focused on a lot of the wrong things. I mean, you know this. You could talk about it all day, I bet.
We could. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here and figure out what
Me
rabbit
too.
holes to go down. But I mean, they've been wildly successful in morphing the military into this whatever you want to call it. And I do want to. Do you want to talk about? I don't want to forget about having your kids join the military.
Sure. Yep.
Maybe we end with that.
Sure.
Because I have a lot of thoughts on that too. But
yeah, me too.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I think about this all the time. I mean, you watch the show. I've had active duty guys on. I've had the most badass American warriors that we've ever produced on this show. And everybody says the same thing. They don't all say it on camera because it doesn't, we don't always go into that. But I do ask them.
Wow, this is
all
the
of
most
them,
people I've
like,
ever
how
had
is
in a
it?
stream.
How
Thank
is
you.
it in there? Especially the guys that just got out. They're all disgusted. They're all demoralized.
Totally.
I feel like the gas really got turned on when the defund the police movement happened. I knew it was
part
going
of
to
it.
bleed in because I thought the defund the police, I was like, this isn't about this shit. They want to rid the LE agencies of the old guard because they all think alike. They do a damn good job. And so let's destroy it and rebuild it with a new mindset. And that happened. I think that happened. Do you think it happened?
Yes,
That's part of
I
it.
do. I mean, if you look at the back cover of the book, it says, I joined the Army to fight extremists in 2001. 20 years later, that same Army labeled me one.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I got out because, and I can tell the story or not, but I was deemed an extremist because of a tattoo by my National Guard unit in Washington, D.C. And my orders were revoked
That's
to
insane.
guard the Biden inauguration. But all of this, so you have what happened with George
What a
Floyd.
punishment.
I know. It's actually,
They want
you
ideologues.
put it that way, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. But you had the George Floyd riots, and then I was also in the DC Guard during what happened in front of the White House. You remember the insurrection that no one calls an insurrection outside the White House when they, burned the church down and got to the gates of the White House. I was there the second night through the fifth night of all of that. I was a 04 major holding a riot shield because they didn't have enough guys. So we were just out there doing our thing and explain a little bit about that. That happens. Then January 6th happens. And both of those moments become pretenses for the DOD with political
Dude,
appointees.
it was so clearly, all of this is so clearly orchestrated. And the people that deny that there's a conspiracy against the military and against American citizens, I don't know what world you're living in. It's so obvious.
Who've long since been burrowed in, and generals who are all in for the politically correct agenda. They maybe kept their head down during Trump because he didn't want to hear about it. Guys like Milley, guys like Austin, they were right there waiting in the
Milley
wings,
is a
ready to
traitor
go.
and a coward.
Once the combination of Floyd and January 6th happened, they went all in on DEI and CRT and transformation.
Thank God I was
focusing on
out at that
patriot
time.
extremism. We talk all about that in the book. Gadsden flags are signs of radicalism. Get the bumper sticker off your car. A Jerusalem cross tattoo, which is just a Christian symbol.
Is that the
this is the one.
that the
Yep,
tattoo?
right here. This one is.
They wouldn't let my father, who is a 30-year Army veteran, who's currently still in, they wouldn't let him wear something about Trump at a command event. I think he had a MAGA hat or something, and they made him take it off. Yeah.
Is what got me disinvited, I'd never had orders revoked before. I mean, listen, it's a standard deal. You remember after January 6th, everyone was in Washington, D.C. Like Nancy Pelosi had the parking garages full of National Guardsmen. The fence was up. I was going, and my commander called me a day before tepidly and was like, Major, you can just stand down. We don't need you. We're good. I'm like, what do you mean? Everybody's there. He's like, no,
They want
you couldn't
yes
tell me.
men.
And then, of course, when I was writing the book, I reached out to somebody in the unit who could confirm with 99.9% certainty because he was in the meetings and on the emails. Nope, someone inside the DC Guard trolled your social media, found a tattoo, used it as an excuse to call you a white nationalist, an extremist.
That's insane.
And you were specifically by name orders revoked to guard the inauguration because you were considered a potential threat.
Jesus.
How is
dude.
that? It's a cross.
It's a Christian symbol. That's all it is. There's a lot of guys I got a Christian symbol here. I got, because it wasn't about that. It was about, I don't know, I'm too conservative? Is it because I'm a Trump supporter?
Yep.
Is it because
It's the Trump
I was
supporter
I was a
thing.
reporter on January 6th?
So they just
covered
didn't want you there.
I just
And
didn't
so
want me
that
there.
was
Or maybe I worked at Fox.
They
Maybe
want
that's what
yes
it was.
men.
They had decided.
They didn't want people who had any type of support for Trump in case it did turn out the way that they were hoping it turned out.
Pete Hegseth is not qualified to guard the inauguration of a Democrat president, which is ridiculous because I volunteered to go to Afghanistan under Barack Obama. I'm no Democrat, But I was hopeful the surge in Afghanistan might work, and I volunteered to go in 2011, 2012. So it's never been about, for guys like you and me, it's never been about Republicans and Democrats. It's been about the Republic.
And they're labeling
And
us domestic terrorists.
It's all been put into question in everyone's mind. And so there's a chance to course correct it, but it would take a new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire.
Thanks for liking the
You
stream,
gotta fire
guys.
the
I
chairman of the
appreciate it.
Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it, and that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies. So you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking.
This stuff is This is exactly why the media is currently attacking him and calling him unqualified. All this because of this talk right here. He has an agenda, and he knows what Trump wants to take the woke bullshit out of the military, and that ruins their plans. They've been trying to dismantle our military for the last 12 years. Can't have that.
And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, I don't know, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken. And
nobody was worried about all this woke shit.
By putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
Yep.
I mean, you don't think we need to gut the entire institution? You think this is just coming from the top down?
I think right now my assessment based on talking to...
It's definitely a top-down part of it.
Is that it's a top-down, bottom-up problem. Yep. Is that you've got top-down political generals who've gained rank by playing by all the wrong rules that cater to the ideologues in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And so they'll do any social
justice
and
defense
gender,
contractors,
climate, extremism crap, because it gets them checked to the next level. And
some of these people are bought by China.
Who don't know anything about the military, really, other than they want a new first here and a new first there, and can we get the first trans this or whatever, just nonsense. And then now you have a junior corps, which, listen, their incentive structure, whether it was in university or at service academies or just coming through college, is belief in these things. That diversity is our strength, that equity, that the standards could be racially biased, that showing up on time is a social construct. So if you spend enough time with those two things meeting, you could have a wholesale takeover of the Defense Department. I do think there's still a core of mostly silent. They also pushed out a lot of vaccine.
Yeah,
folks,
my father,
vaccine,
he's still in.
Obviously.
I think
that's another one.
I think that was
a purge.
Engineered as well.
That's a purge.
There are still plenty of people that are in that want these changes in the military, and they're holding their tongues and they're praying that somebody comes in and fixes it. The problem is a lot of people like me who got out don't want anything to do with it now, because we're kind of black-pilled that it's never going to be fixed. But I'm hoping somebody like him can come in and start fixing this stuff, because the military is desperate for somebody to come in and clean up this woke bullshit.
That's a purge of people of conscience. If you have enough of a conscience, whether it's faith, belief, or whatever, purge out. Patriot extremism, purge out. So there was a big push of a lot of those people in the middle out. I still think, and I know enough guys and talked to enough who said, hey, I want to be in for the right reasons. I know what's wrong. It's jacked up. If I say something, I'm canned. But in a new environment, I think there's still a core there that's not. And here's the challenge. In Battle for the American Mind, my other book was about the state of education in America, which is total. I mean, government schools are, this as well as anybody, horror shows. But if you want to get out of them, you can. You can move. You can homeschool. You can, you got options for the most part. School. we only have one Defense Department. What's the option? Abandon it? And so if every patriot
A
abandons
lot of
it,
people have.
what does it look like, and how is it utilized in the future in ways that are far more nefarious?
It looks like what it's
than
looking like
foreign
right now.
wars,
People are
where we
abandoning
get
it.
entangled and we end up trying to nation build for 20 years.
I feel like that's how we fix it. You abandon it.
Really?
Yup.
Wow.
I know you
So a lot of
probably think
people
I'm-
in here who
No,
like
I-
the stream.
it's-
I appreciate
would-
that.
We have a Second Amendment.
You are great.
We have more gun owners than anything else in this country. Yeah, I know we need planes and tech and satellites
Thank
and
you,
Space Force and all the Navy and all the shit, but when's the last time we actually went to war to fight for our freedom?
We won't even defend our southern border.
Yep.
Should we have been in Iraq?
I was a huge proponent of it at the time, but in retrospect, absolutely not.
So was I. I don't think we should have been there.
Yeah.
I think that was all for Cheney and KBR,
Yep.
Halliburton. I think we were in Afghanistan for way too. I don't even think we're defending the country. Like, why the fuck are people even signing up to go to war for what? For what? Whose war? It's not our fucking war. We're funding the Taliban $40 to $87 million
Yep.
A week.
a week.
A week.
People
They run
who
the
actively
government over
work
there. They're
against our
making
interests.
passports for these guys, legitimate passports for these guys. They fly them all over South America and Central America. They funnel up through the southern border. You know, it's not a fucking conspiracy. It's real. And like, so what are we going to use our military for? For Ukraine?
No.
So why would anybody sign up? What are you defending?
Exactly.
What are you defending?
You got to give people an
great
incentive
question.
to sign
I
up,
mean, I
and
think
nobody
it's-
wants it.
And that's why I reserved judgment to say I want to know what the world looks like in 4 years when you're 18.
And if they do lose all the patriots, they have to change something because they have
Or
no
do
one.
they? Or do they? Or
Maybe
would
you're
they?
right.
Or would
Maybe
they
you're right.
conscript?
Maybe you're right.
Or would
That's
they
what the fear is.
bring in pathway to citizenship?
Yep.
Conscript. I mean, I think DC will find a way, and
I
it
love
would.
Trump
It may
and
be
Pete.
ugly.
Yep.
and
Same
it
here,
may-
Kaya.
And so I share all of your skepticism.
I think he's a
about
great
that.
pick.
I've been a recovering neocon for 6 years now. Like the foolishness with which we ricocheted around the world, intervening, think it was in our best interest when really we just overturned the table and created something worse in almost every single scenario, has led to the hubris of the Pentagon is that they want to now tell other countries how to do counterinsurgency based on what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, are you kidding me? So
It's
you really have
ridiculous, man.
learned nothing. Okay, nothing. So yeah, you're right. The trust there that our political leaders or our generals would have our best interests in mind is totally broken. It's totally.
There comes a point when it seems on purpose. It's not just incompetence. It seems like they are purposely doing this. I mean, I don't think there's any way to reason out of that. I really don't.
Broken. I acknowledge that completely. And the last thing I want is my son deploying to the Donbass to defend eastern Ukraine. I'm with you too.
Why would anybody want to?
At the same time, I'm fearful of what happens when the institution gets abandoned completely. And maybe it feels like the public school argument, like, hey, if we take all the Christians and people of faith out of public schools, then they're really going to go. Yeah, but you got to save your kid.
I'm still
right,
here,
and I'm
but
going to save my
one
kid,
second.
and that's the view. It's just there isn't an alternative right now to the United States military. There just isn't, and I don't want to lose patriotic influence over that. So my prayer, because if Donald Trump doesn't win and Kamala Harris is the commander in chief, what's happening inside our military is going to go on another level of warp speed. And you're going to see even more guys and gals retiring, and even more of the DEI woke focus, and it's going to continue to spiral. If Trump does win and goes at it, I think it might be our last sort of chance to save this institution and turn it back to what it was, because it is a top-down organization.
He's completely right. So here's the problem is when I was in during the Trump administration, all of this stuff was still happening under Trump. So I'm praying that we get somebody like Pete who comes in knowing what's going on and can keep the Wiseman. This seems okay, but everything else is Israel first pick. I wouldn't say everything else. There's been quite a few Israel picks. The guy from Florida is saying end Ukraine through escalation. Sounds like more of the same from 90% of the. I wouldn't say 90%, but I do understand what you're saying. Stefanik is definitely a Israel first pick. But her position is kind of inconsequential to me. It's just a UN ambassador. You knew he was going to pick a pro-Israel UN ambassador. Waltz is definitely a hawk. I wasn't incredibly happy about that one. And then Mike Huckabee for Israel ambassador, that's inconsequential. He's just a liaison. He doesn't really wield any huge authority. But if he picks Marco Rubio, then yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't like that pick. But I do think a lot of change can still be made. I'm not going to just throw out the bathwater now. I mean, got to give it time, man. Maybe some of this turns out really well. And I think we all knew that Trump was going to be very pro-Israel. And a lot of his cabinet was going to be pro-Israel. I mean, I don't think that necessarily means that makes the whole administration Israel first. But I do understand your problem. I really do. Hopefully it still becomes America first. But it's yet to be seen. But there's definitely some shilling going on. So I get it.
You put a SecDef in there who's focused on all the right things, get rid of all the things that are described in the book, and focus on warfighting, lethality, and training. And
I will point out, this pick, though, I think this pick is very, very important. None of the other stuff will matter if our military becomes a shell of itself. We need somebody who understands the issue and comes in and fixes the military. And somebody like me, my father's still in, I'm a veteran, we desperately need to fix it. So, throw Israel their bones and let's fix our military and fix our country. Baby steps, man. Trump picked him. Yeah, I saw that he picked him. I still haven't seen any real confirmation, but I see it coming. I agree about this guy for sure. Hell yeah. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be Marco Rubio, which I do disagree with. But it is what it is. Let's pray that Rubio proves us wrong. Let's do that. We do understand that it's not a great pick. And maybe if he turns out really bad, Trump will replace him. But I'm going to put my prayers up that he proves us wrong. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see. Now, I did just see breaking news. Trump picks Tulsi Gabbard to serve as Director of National Intelligence. I think that's a pretty damn good pick. I wish she was in the Secretary of State position, though. But it's a little too late for that. But yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, man. I'm more on your side than not. Right now I'm trying to remain optimistic, because regardless, anything is better than what we would have had on the other side. At least everybody, I think, feels that. So we'll see. Let's give Trump a chance. Give some of these people a chance. And I did look up Walt's heritage score, and it really wasn't that bad. His voting record is actually pretty decent, but he is definitely huge on Israel. So
standards, real standards, not equity, but equality.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it.
Okay, here's I might disagree with you a little bit about the Susan Wiles. It's not a pick I would have chosen. However, and this is the part that people don't like to talk about and don't like to accept, but it's reality. She is part of the lobbyist world. Having her as a chief of staff is actually kind of important, because she's going to be the liaison between Trump and the lobbyists to push his policies through. You have to play the game. You have to play the game. I get where you're coming from. I can understand why you think it's awful. However, she is very influential in getting lobbyists to push policies. We have to play that game. You're never going to get anywhere in D.C. in its current form unless you satisfy some of the lobbying. And Susan Wiles is actually influential in getting SpaceX the government contracts that Elon got. She's a lobbyist swamp creature, and you kind of have to have that. But I do understand why you think she's awful. And I am also happy for Tulsi. That's great news. But yeah, we're going to have swamp creatures in this administration, man. I don't think there's any way out of it. Yeah. And I kind of expected it would go this route. And she was also very influential in getting those lobbyists to back Trump to get him elected. So she's a big reason he is currently the president-elect. So
there's still the core there. But
I can tell he's made some promises.
What has Washington shown us in the last 20 years that we should trust them with how they'll use our young men? It's fair. I mean, Trump tried to use them on the border and they shut him down.
Our power grid's fucked. Our border's fucked. Our education system's fucked. Everything's fucked. That's the way it feels. Everything is fucked. And we're shipping all of our money overseas.
Everything is fucked.
And we should be, I mean, do you know how, do you know anything about the power grid? Do you know how bad it is?
Super vulnerable. I mean, one EMP, one of the right strikes, and we're what happens when we're months without power?
I don't think they even need to do an EMP. We don't need.
Hey, thanks for the likes, by the way.
China produces all of our
and thanks for chatting, bro.
Transformers, all of our solar, all of our wind, everything. And so, and we don't even check it for malware or Trojan horses or any of these type of viruses that they. I mean, and even Ray, FBI Director Ray, came out and said, yeah, they've.
Amen.
They're
for
in.
Sure.
They're in our grid and they're in our water treatment plants, and all they have to do is flip the switch.
I love that Shawn always talks about the grid.
But we shipped
Nobody talks about
it. Is it like 175 billion thus far to Ukraine? But
no, well, and Bin Laden's son is now in Afghanistan. He's married to the daughter of Mullah Omar and the daughter of what's
Zarqawi.
Zarqawi, and they're, I mean, when you hear when the FBI director is saying that the dashboard is flashing red and smoking, he's not doing it because he's doing it because he's covering his ass. He knows something's coming at some point. And
but even on top of all the DEI stuff on the military, I don't even think that's. I think that's just one aspect of the war on warriors. I mean, just before we started talking,
it's a big aspect, but yeah, it's only
on
one
the
of
show.
many.
We were having a side conversation about the Biden Four, the Blackwater guys, Eddie Gallagher, Goldstein, the latest one. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Completely threw those guys under the bus.
He's a naval captain. He was in charge of Naval Special Warfare Training Center. He was the guy that was in charge when Mullen, the SEAL recruit who was in Buds, died. And now they're pinning his ass to the wall, and it's straight lies. Just for an example.
They hide evidence.
You know, they are blaming it on the training cadre, and it was too hard, and the medical checks were wrong, and da-da-da-da-da. But they did three separate investigations to cover up. They just kept reinvestigating it until the facts were gone. And the facts were that they found a cooler or some type of a box full of vials of testosterone, human growth hormone, and Viagra, from Pakistan. And when he died, his heart was 63% larger than most. I think he was 23. Was he 23 at the time? But they had all of that removed out of the investigation. I should connect you guys.
Absolutely.
But that's the latest one. That's Eddie Gallagher. They tried him for murdering
and hid drone
an
footage.
ISIS fighter. They tried him for murdering an ISIS fighter.
Correct.
And I was a SEAL, and I asked because I thought he was guilty. I thought he was guilty because everybody was saying that he was guilty. I was calling my buddies that were still in. Hey, what's up with this Gallagher guy? Is this real? Like, what? I don't see the problem here. And they're like, oh, man, dude, you don't want to. It's bad. They have the videos. It was bad. They didn't have anything. Went around to all the SEAL teams and briefed them saying that they had video.
Thanks again for the likes, guys. I appreciate it.
That Eddie killed this guy in a, I don't know, whatever fashion. But nobody ever saw it. Turns out in court, it never came up. They just fucking lied.
I think a lot of people feel the
to
same way
the
as you,
entire
Weisman,
SEAL
though.
community to pin this guy's ass to the wall. A lot of people still hate him.
Just be skeptically
You had
optimistic.
his lawyer, Tim Parlatore,
Yeah.
on your show, without the kind of legal defense that he got. I mean, they got the other guy to admit that he killed him in the last day of
Yeah,
trial.
it wasn't even him.
It wasn't even him. So
You didn't even kill the
you didn't
ISIS
kill him.
fighter.
So it's Eddie Gallagher or Clint Lawrence or the Raven 23 guys who
I mean,
you've
those
had on the
guys
show.
were, one was going, Nick Slatton was going to prison for life.
For life.
And the other three, I believe it was 35 years. And they deleted the drone footage.
Thanks for
that
the
proved
subs.
their
I see
innocence
those.
Yes.
Thank
in
you.
court. That's another one. Hey, let's just retry them until we get a guilty.
A couple of them didn't even pull the trigger in the actual incident. It's Matt Goldstein's the other one I'm thinking of, a Green Beret. So yeah, I mean, chapter
It's
10
all
and
bullshit.
11 are more lethality, less lawyers, and the laws of war for winners. Talking about exactly this, and this is why I was proud to be a part of, in a small way, behind the scenes, with all of those, with the pardons that came for President Trump, and what his instinct was. Hey, I'm with the war fighters.
Yeah,
Like, we
pardoning
sent them to do
Gallagher
these
was a
really
great
dangerous,
move.
dirty, difficult things that no one else would do, and then sort of like the line from A Few Good Men. And then we challenge the manner in which they do it, and even when they do it in a way we may not like or every people don't understand, rather than giving them deference
need
or
me
having
on
their
that
back
wall.
or finding a way to support them, we throw them under the bus. And the Raven 23 is one of the most egregious examples of that, because it was politically expedient for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden to do that. It was a gift to the Maliki government because of what, the publicity that had come out because of it. And so you have a Pentagon that starts to be complicit with that way of thinking, and it's all about advancement and covering up problems, and they don't have the backs of guys. Rules of engagement are a huge problem, as you know.
That's another one.
It's a big one.
I mean, I remember.
Wait for the enemy to
I was
fire
working
on
for
you
the
before you
agency
can
at the
fire.
time,
Yeah, it's a
and
problem.
We were in Helmand Province, and the Marines were getting ready to do this big push through Marjad. Do you remember
I
that?
remember that, yep.
We were co-located, right? They didn't know, but we were right alongside them. And I remember when the ROEs came out for that under the Obama administration, it was, if they
Wow,
shoot
you've
at
given me
you
like
and drop
6
their
subs. I
weapon,
appreciate that.
you cannot return fire.
In a war.
And I was like, man, like, you just cut these guys' legs out right out from under them. Like, nobody's even, what are we doing? Like, you just put the fear of God in these guys that if they have to do their job and defend the country, that they're going to go to prison for the rest of their
Yeah,
life.
so then nobody wants to do
mean,
anything
what-
and they get killed.
They demoralized the entire battalion that was doing that
Matt
offensive
Gates
push.
is Attorney General, apparently.
And I mean, it's just
That's an
This
interesting
has been a
one.
long
I don't hate that.
process.
That's why I say the rules of war for winners, because why are we fighting an enemy? Why have we spent the last 20 years fighting enemies that don't abide by rules at all?
That's
And these are
interesting.
rules written by like dudes in cloakrooms in Europe after World
Is Gates on the House Intelligence Committee or the House Judicial Committee? I don't remember. Because Trump just chose him as his Attorney General. I don't hate that. I would have picked somebody else, but it's an interesting pick. I'm trying to remember what committee he's on. I think he might be on Intelligence Committee, but he could be in Judicial. I know Gates has done a wonderful job in the past few years. It's an interesting pick. If anybody's in here and knows what committee Matt Gates was on, I don't remember. Here, let me just look it up, I guess. I think that's a good pick. Yeah, I think that's a good pick. That's somebody who's going to go to war for Trump. I mean, and he's fiery. I think he was on the Intelligence Committee, but what committee is Matt Gates? Okay, yeah. Okay. Judiciary Committee, I was right about that one. So that, yeah, he knows, he's been on that committee for a long time. He knows a bit. House ethics, yeah, I see that too. It does say he's part of the Judiciary Committee. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I want to see how that goes. I think that's somebody who's going to go to the mat for Trump. And I think he's been wanting this chance for a long time. Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. I am going to play this, but I'll be right back.
World War I because they thought that they could fight polite wars in the future amongst European nations. When we live now in a world in 2024 where all of our enemies use all of their advantages against us, ignoring all the rules of war, and then expecting us to play by all those very same rules, where we're our largest critiquers in the middle of the process, and then we wonder why the war never ends and why it perpetuates itself, and then why we're throwing our own guys in jail. Because we've written rules that are impossible, that are written for us to lose, that are written for our guys to be in handcuffs. I mean, I got a similar brief. We had a JAG officer, brief our platoon in Iraq in 2005 in Baghdad prior to one of our first missions, and it was just standard ROE briefing. He's like, so you see a man in the road and he's carrying an RPG, but it's not yet pointed at you. And it was, an enemy. Can you shoot? My guy's like, hell yeah. No,
I see what you
cannot.
said, Mark.
But you cannot shoot until he's pointing that weapon at you.
The resistance
And I just
will
remember
take the
walking
woman
out,
fighters.
clear as day, I remember walking out of that briefing, pulling my platoon together and being like, guys, we're not doing that. Like if you see an enemy and they're engaged before he's able to point his weapon at you and shoot, we're going to have your back. And that comes back down to commanders. And I felt like I could say that because I know I had commanders echelons above me who would have our backs in that process. And the New York Times and the left and Democrats would say, all they do is take one incident and yell war criminal. They never actually understand the context of what happened. I mean, I got the same income on Eddie Gallagher. Don't touch this story. I talked to CLF, don't touch it. Guilty as all hell, guilty as all. And I just looked more and more, same with Clint Lorenz, same with Matt Goldstein, and the Raven 23 guys.
What is Matt Goldstein?
Matt Goldstein's Green Beret. I can't remember all the particulars of it right now, but he was involved. A guy who they had rolled up, who had been involved in killing Americans, then had gotten released, and his sources were going to be killed, and he laid in basically an ambush on the guy when he was released and killed him because they
I'm
knew
going through
that
Trump's picks
their
here.
sources were all going to be killed. Forgive me if that's wrong. Something along those lines.
It's not a bad lineup.
Text me.
There's some questionable ones.
So I'm sure I got some part of that wrong. He's one of the smartest, most patriotic guys you'll ever meet. I mean, you should have him on the show sometime. Guy's phenomenal, like stupid level smart,
So
PhD level.
Trump has still
Did he
not,
get out of it, or is he?
from what I'm
out of it,
seeing,
had a
Trump has
party.
still not himself
Trump.
confirmed Marco
Nice.
Rubio, but
and because
it is looking that way.
And the thing with Trump is,
I don't see any proof
his
from
wife,
Trump
Julie
that it's
Goldstein, was on
confirmed.
our
Though.
show a number of times. She's just really articulate, really passionate. Once he sees a story and gets how it connects to something bigger, connects to the bigger idea that we're fucking over our warfighters here. Why are we doing that? Why did we do that?
'Cause they
Why
hate
wouldn't
us.
we back these guys up, even if they weren't perfect? And he'd call me, but
We fuck over the
did
military
some
because they hate
did some
us.
tough things. These are rough guys, but he respects people that were willing to do it on behalf of the rest of us, and he's not going to throw them under the bus. So once he gets the information, and you're able to say, "Here's what happened," or "Here's what happened in
Thanks
Eddie
for all the
Gallagher's
likes
trial."
and
I mean,
all the
that went all the way to the
subs. I
Secretary of the
really
Navy.
appreciate that.
If you remember that,
Yeah.
I mean, the guy Spencer
I'm
got
on the push
canned,
to 500.
for misrepresenting how that entire case went out.
I
That's
need
what you
500
leaders
subs.
that get it, and that was Donald
Do
Trump.
you think it would be a good idea for whoever gets into office to put like a team together of these guys that have been through what we're talking about, like Eddie, Brad Geary, Goldstein?
Yep.
Because one, they know who to go after because it's happening to them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Two, they're passionate about
Put
it.
Tim Parlatore on that list too, by the way. He's super
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, Tim would be
He'd be good.
a great
knows it.
wrecking ball,
He would.
a level-headed wrecking ball. But
We need killers, dude.
But I mean, I feel like maybe a little bit of an overcorrection because it's personal. But
Sure.
I mean, I feel like that would be a great start.
Yeah, you have to start with people who can say, okay, I know who the political animals were in those places.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge of a new administration. Is everyone's going to jump up and down and say, I was this, or I was never really for that, or I was...
Oh, there's going to be a lot of
because they want
people.
to preserve their careers.
trying
They
to
have have
hide.
somebody that's able to call balls and strikes.
I mean, this isn't just happening with the military, though. I mean, this is in all the agencies. I know it's at the the agency because I
Yeah.
was there. It was bad when I left in 2015. But,
And the
you know, and
FBI really bad.
you know, when you say from the top down, I don't know if that works. I don't know about the academies, what they're teaching.
Well,
but
you'd
when
have
you
to change the academies too, right? So that's where you have to change both sides of that squeeze.
You have to go reform the entire curriculum.
Admission standards, overall standards. I think a huge one is women in combat and quotas. I think the way they pushed that under Obama in a way that had zero to do with efficacy, zero to do with lethality and capability.
You don't like women in combat.
They lowered the standards.
Why not?
I love women service members who contribute amazingly because everything about men and women serving together makes the situation more complicated, and complication in combat means casualties
People
are
are
worse.
dead.
And when you actually go into the hood, again, and I got response. I've got 99% positive response to this. A little bit of pushback, but when you actually break down what they did in the studies to open the door for women in combat, I mean, they just ignored them. So the Marine Corps was the only service that actually tried to fight back and say, and now obviously I'm exempting special operations, which thus far has held the line fairly well.
Well, the SEALs tried to fight
Because
back
if
for a long
they
time
were
too,
lowering
and
the
then
standard to become a Navy SEAL,
still-
just to let women inside the Navy SEALs, that's going to change the capabilities and ethos of the Navy SEALs, except for a very small example of some, female super soldier who's capable of doing it. But because of how Washington works, they're going to change the standards. They're going to push for quotas. We have numerous quotes in the book of, no, these standards aren't changing. They're just evolving. Okay, they're just evolving.
Okay.
To meet the needs of today.
They're not getting tougher.
They
I
use
guess.
that
They're not
Marxist
tougher.
language.
No, so they're getting lower. Take someone like Milley. I mean, he was calling down to individual units to make sure they had female company commanders after they graduated from Ranger School. Like, what's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs doing, pushing company command slots for? It's all an agenda. It's all to say, oh, we have this first, or we have this, that. So that's proliferated everywhere. The reason women started getting in combat is because of forward support companies, and they were, we were integrating a lot of the rear echelon activities into BCTs, brigade combat teams, that were now deploying forward as an entity. And so you had women truck drivers or fuel or mechanics on these convoys in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then they'd be ambushed or hit by IEDs, and suddenly now you have women in combat. That's maybe a modern reality in a 360 battlefield. That's different than
You're not going to avoid
saying,
that. Yeah.
We're going to put women into combat roles so they will do the combat jobs of men.
And it ruins unit
knowing that we've
cohesiveness.
changed the standards in putting them there, which means you've changed the capability of that unit. And if you say you haven't, you're a liar. Because everybody knows between bone density and lung capacity and muscle strength, men and women are just different. And so if you want to,
Wow.
I'm okay with the idea that
Oh my God, a defense secretary that actually understands the difference between a man and a woman? I never thought I would see that again.
you maintain the standards where they are for everybody. And if there's some, hard charging female that meets that standard, great, cool, join the infantry battalion. But that is not what's happened.
Yeah.
What has happened is the standards have lowered because the general comes by and asks a question. You know what questions are when generals ask questions. They're just a command. Lieutenant or captain or major, why aren't there more women in your unit? That means get some more women in your unit now. And that moves all the way through the training pipeline. And so I'm surprised there hasn't been more blowback on that already in the book, because I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
Oh, trust
It
me, there's
hasn't made us
blowback.
more effective.
If you go on Twitter right now, there is a bunch of lefties losing their minds that he was just picked for defense secretary just because of that part of his book and what he said about this. They are losing it. There is blowback.
Hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. Most of them actually a lot of them are pushed, I shouldn't say most, but many are pushed into a combat track because they're so highly capable. But if they had their first choice, it probably wouldn't be that. An 11 series job, armor or infantry. So, the Marine Corps did the study, and integrated units, meaning male, female, did drastically worse than L-male units. And Ray Mabus, who was the Secretary of the Navy in time in 2015,
obvious.
said, "Oh, fuck your study. We're doing it." Because that's what the Obama administration wanted.
Yep.
And everything else changed. So I'm not saying that was the only point, but and I don't know if that'll ever change. I mean, imagine the demagoguery that would come on in Washington, D.C. if you're actually making the case for, we should scale back women in combat. And as the disclaimer for everybody out there, and I'm not really in the disclaimer business, like we've all served with women and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize
This
that
is why
in
they're
places
losing their
where
minds.
Traditionally,
Stuff like
not
this.
traditionally, over human history, men in those
He's a strong pick because they're actually scared of this pick. That's the reality.
positions are more capable.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I think women, I have to give my opinion here, I guess. I think women do have a place in combat if they want it.
Give them their own place.
I think there are certain units that they need to
Stay away.
stay out of.
Yep.
Or create their own. Because when you said it gets complicated, yeah, it does get complicated, man. I mean, sex happens everywhere. And I talked about this on another one and I got blasted for it. Like, oh, well, you guys should be more professional. Yeah, fuck you, okay? Like, wasn't there like some senator's aide getting his ass pounded in D.C.?
In the
Like,
hearing
there's your
room.
top
In the hearing room.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then we got a president getting blowjobs under the desk. Like, give me a break, man. Come on. This shit happens everywhere. Everybody knows it. Happens everywhere in corporate. Happens everywhere in government. Like, it's just humanity. Like, people are gonna have sex, and that creates drama, and that breaks team dynamics, and creates issues between personnel. And the next thing you know, you're going to combat with a bunch of people that hate each other because there was some kind of a love triangle going on in the platoon or the
Or would
unit.
treat somebody differently in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, maybe you're something like a female engagement team. Like, I understand the role of female engagement teams.
I mean, there's some
Like, I get
amazing
that.
pilots.
I'm not
Amazing
even talking about pilots. I'm not talking about pilots. I'm not talking about the ability
Women
to,
can be pretty good
do-
pilots.
I'm talking about
I
physical.
know quite a few of them.
Yeah.
I'm a pilot, by the way.
Labor-intensive type
Gotta
jobs.
point
So
that
maybe
out.
you're
People
talking
in the face at close distance when it's very personal. That's the kind of stuff you're talking
SEALs,
about.
Rangers, Green Berets, MARSOC, infantry battalions, armor, artillery. If strength, I'm talking about stuff that would need strength is a differentiator.
Yeah.
Pilots, give me a female pilot all day long.
Yep.
I got no issues with that.
Yeah.
I got no issues with So
One of my
thank you for that opportunity to.
one of the best flight instructors I ever had that taught me a lot was a female pilot. There are some great female pilots out there.
To clarify. But on the physical stuff, there's just a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I mean, what else is there? What else is going on with the war on warriors? I mean, where I was going with the other agencies is
we can
the
go there.
academia stuff,
Yep.
and they get in. So it's coming from the top, but it's also in the education system, which we should talk about too. And then they get in to these agencies, and I mean so it's coming from both.
For sure, and it's happening not just at the, FBI is another prominent example of that. We saw, take the assassination attempt of President Trump. I mean, in a perfect world, would you want to have like 6'3" guys guarding a 6'3" president?
Well, I'll tell you what, it sure as hell doesn't make sense to have a 5'5" woman in there guarding a 6'2"
Who
man.
can't even holster her
because
pistol.
Part of personal security is you should be able to shield your principal. And that obviously didn't happen.
All right.
Folks, you know it. America has never been this close.
We're gonna
to
get
collapse.
to China.
Military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapons.
Leader that starts to turn the ship around. And all the signs are already there with our military. I mean, I wish I would have checked these numbers before we jumped on today, but I mean, China's Navy is astronomically bigger than what we have
Outpacing
now
us really
at this
bad.
point. I mean, they're building, I can't remember, is it like a new aircraft carrier every year or every couple
Something
of
like
months or
that,
something
yeah.
like that? We can't do that.
Last year they built like 23
The
naval
Pentagon,
ships
it's in
and
the
then
book,
5
the exact
subs
amount
or
of
something
years,
like
but
that.
in the past X number of years, 10, 12, 15, the Pentagon has a perfect record in all of its war games against China. We lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the
And
military.
we lose in defending Taiwan. Every war game we've lost defending Taiwan. And I think we lose like 10,000 sailors or something every time.
Industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems, we're always, the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works, we're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China, we have what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war of the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic
They brag about
outset.
it.
Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict, what does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, and if they've already got us by the balls economically, which you pointed out very well, with our grid, culturally, there's plenty of elite capture going on around the globe. I mean, and then microchips and everything. Why do they want Taiwan? They want to corner the market completely on the technological future. We can't even drive our cars without the stuff we need out of China these days.
Nope.
I mean,
This becomes like
full
$20,000 if they take Taiwan.
long-term view of not just regional but global domination, and we have our heads up our asses.
Yeah.
And that's the
If you have the money to buy extra cell phones, buy them now. They're going to be worth a lot if China takes Taiwan.
yes, the terrorist threat of our border. By the way, China probably has more people here, as many or more than these terrorist organizations planted.
You know
inside
what they're
our country.
doing now? They have all these crypto scams. They're trying to suck all the
Yeah.
money out of the country now. So they have all these crypto scams going on, and people are falling for it. And I'm not talking like
Poor
chump
old
change.
people.
I'm talking millions and millions of dollars. They come around, and basically what they do is they try to get you to invest in Bitcoin type crypto stuff, and they'll be like, hey Pete, give me 15 grand. I'll turn it into 45 in 2 weeks. You give them the 15 grand, like, all right, I can gamble that. And then they bring you 45 grand. The next one, it's 200,000. The next one's $1 million. And then the $1 million happens and it's gone. And so they're funneling all the
And
cash
people fall for that shit,
out of the
dude.
country. This is a big thing that's happening right now in this county. I just got briefed up by
I'd
the
not heard
Williams
that.
County Sheriff's Department on this.
Interesting.
Yep. And this shit's, I think they just did they tracked a guy all the way to Vegas who was just bouncing from state to state to state doing this, and picked him up. And it's happening all over the place. They really have us from just about every angle.
And they have a grand plan and a grand strategy to. They believe the whole 20th century was anti-Chinese. The whole architecture, the whole security architecture, from NATO to the World Bank to everything, exists to serve America's interests, which in some parts they did exist to serve the interests of the winner. All those institutions, of course, have been totally corrupted and all of that. But originally, they were meant to create a strategic architecture that reinforced the dominance of the West. So they reject all of those things. And they are seeking to, the only way they can implement a structure that serves them is by defeating us. And they know that. And they're ambitious enough, the leaders, Xi Jinping and others in the CCP, to put in a plan to do it. And we're too busy. And then we, not only do we not do
We're
it,
too busy putting woke DEI shit in our military while China is building its strongest military in its history and trying to pass us up. And we're worried about, making women men and men women and looking for trans bathrooms. Like I said, that last order they gave me in the military was to locate a trans safe space. And I refused to do it. But that was the last thing I was told to do while I was in the Navy.
do anything about it, but we let in TikTok where they can trans our kids and they don't trans their kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's this is why and not just because of this, but like my faith has become so much more important to me than politics, than the day-to-day grind, because
I think they're intertwined.
we can invest all our time and all our energy in a political outcome, and it's not going to save us. So I'm grateful to know who my Lord and Savior is, and ultimately that's we know who wins the victory there. But it doesn't mean we don't need to still be actively involved in every way we can.
Exactly.
We still got to try.
Absolutely.
I'm with you, though. I am with you. But I mean, are you concerned about nuclear war?
I mean, yes, in a general sense, I guess. I found overinflated from the beginning this idea that Vladimir Putin's attack on Ukraine was going to lead to nuclear war or war across the continent. I've always felt like it was, from the beginning, like a couple days in, I was like, this feels like a Putin's give me my shit back war. It kind of feels like
he said that.
Feel like you've been pushing pretty hard, and we used to have the former Soviet Union, and we're pretty proud of that. And Ukraine was a part of it, and all these other countries. And I want my shit back.
He's openly
and I
said
think I'm
that.
at the right time where I'm powerful enough to do it, and you're not quite on my border yet. And Biden's AWOL, so I'm going for it. And just like I did under my minor incursion under Obama, I got what I could. I got Crimea. Now I waited under Trump. Now I'm going to get my. And this idea that I hear all the time, and I've friends who would probably agree with us on most things. They're like, well, if you don't stop him in Ukraine, then he's going to go all the way to Poland. And he's going. I don't think he's. I mean, maybe in a perfect world where he had unlimited capabilities and he could crown himself king of Europe, he would. I think he's probably knows enough to know that he's probably not going much further than Ukraine. And I don't think he's a suicidal maniac who's hell-bent on bringing in
got the territory he wants
through nuclear warfare. So hey, if Ukraine can defend themselves from that, great. But I don't want American intervention driving deep into Europe and making him feel like he's so much.
Here's another thing he's talking about is why they're freaking out about him being the Secretary of Defense. They don't want anybody coming in who is even remotely talking about not funding this war. So this is why they're attacking him in the media right now.
On his heels, that then he does have to, because early on he was talking about nukes. If you remember, there was this, well, we have to use nuclear weapons here or there. So I mean, I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Anthony Vargas, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? I'm happy with this pick. What do you mean more to come? And so what? We got some pro-Israel picks. No, none of us who voted for Trump expected anything else. Even the libertarians who voted for Trump, who hate the Israel situation, they knew that was coming. Nobody's worried. What the fuck are you talking about? Go cry somewhere else. No one cares.
Thoughts on that, but it's not current. I mean, I guess if I'm thinking nukes too, the other part that concerned me is Iran having nuclear weapons, and that was always a bright line for us. Because
you
nuclear
get your
weapons
reward.
in the hands of radical Islamists.
What is that supposed to mean?
Sunni stripe or Shia stripe, who believe their martyrdom rhetoric, the extent to which they do, changes the whole calculation. Like if Al Qaeda had a nuke, what would they do with it? They would use it.
Yeah.
Because the mullahs in Iran, in Tehran, do they really believe that 70,000 martyrs in Iran is worth the destruction of Israel? I don't know, but should we find out? Or that the destruction of the United States or a major American city. So I've taken very seriously for a long time this idea that we can't tolerate an Iranian
Thanks for the
bomb,
chat, though.
because I think Islamists with bomb is different than communists with bomb, even though, I don't know, but for different reasons.
I think, I mean, I'm probably going to contradict myself a little bit here, but I think that, we have tech that does not discuss, and I think that our tech, we're this close from having the Iron Dome that Israel has. We, now the new thing in warfare is, drones, right? These drone swarms.
Yep.
Well, a lot of people are worried about that. We actually already have the answer. Have you heard of the company Epirus?
Yep.
I have not.
I've
So
seen a
it's
lot of people
basically,
talking about this company.
They make direct EMP weapons. And so you should check it out.
Oh, that would make sense. It gets a swarm of drones.
Yep. So they'll
See
take
that.
out 20, 30 drones just like that. Doesn't take ammo. It's just.
And
It looks
directed
like one of
enough.
those missile launchers that we used to use in Desert Storm.
Sure.
I don't remember what you call them, but they're already deployed all over the world. I know the
Some
CEO
dipshit
of
wants
it,
to
the
come
guy
in
that
and
invented
talk.
the damn thing.
I still support
and,
Trump.
I've chatted with him, and
That's not going to change.
he sends me videos. This shit's public, though. I mean, you can look it up. But I mean, when you see things like that, I'm
Yeah.
like, we're good. We're good. I don't think the old tech, that's coming toward. I don't think the nuclear thing is. I pray and hope, and I do believe that we probably have some sort of an answer to that when I see things like this coming out.
I hope
When I
so.
see the thing that's like, and it's not like it shoots all 30 drones down
Sure.
individually. It's just, you just see no noise, just 30
Drop.
drones, 30 helicopters. I don't know how many it could take out at once, but they all just fall. And so when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, we still have an edge here. With that being said, I mean, I know he told me that he produced the chips in it himself, but I don't know if anything's coming from China. I don't know what other weapons we
Okay.
have and what's
I
manufactured.
think we got what we need on. We're going to skip a little bit to public education and finish up the interview here soon. I kind of want to go through Trump's new picks. He just did a few new picks.
Harvard University, it's all critical theory. The lens through which they look at
He's talking about critical
their
race theory.
academic subjects are
in, the
through a
colleges.
critical theory lens. Just look it up. It's right there on the website. They're not even trying to hide it. So, everybody loves Michigan. People that are alumni of Michigan, they love Michigan sports, whatever. Critical theory university out the wazoo. Most major universities use critical theory as a baseline. They're not just lefties anymore. They're radicals across the base. And we knew that. That's why the book's not about college. The book's about high school. So they're pushing all this stuff down into high schools in a place where kids can't understand it. And it's really now just meant to indoctrinate. But the reason I told that story is race was our Achilles heel. And the Marxists knew it. They usually trafficked in class warfare, bourgeoisie, proletariat, class balances. They said, no, in America, because of the Civil War and because of our, slavery,
Yeah,
and
they're
all
race
all those things
hustlers.
that happened, we're going to use that.
Go watch
for it.
Am I Racist?
And
It's
it's
a
been
great,
far more effective. And then
great
after,
movie about how
with
sick these
George
people
Floyd
are.
and with all that, it's been on hyperdrive. Then you get the DEI, CRT stuff. I think eventually, in some
Got the
ways,
hiccups.
they've started to begin to overplay their hand. People see it and expose it, and they realize for what it is. But it's still been a part of the educational philosophy and lens through which so many kids have seen the world. And it's super divisive and super dangerous.
Man, do you think are all Democrats down with this stuff?
I don't think so.
How come nobody's speaking up?
I think Democrats are down with control. I think Democrats are down with. It's a great question. I mean, take Joe Biden, for example. He's always been a partisan. He's always been an egomaniac. They all are at that level, at some level. But he made a deal with the devil with the far left because he thought it would keep his position stable. And I think that's what a lot of members of the left who think a lot of what the radicals think is crazy do. They just say, I don't want the protesters. I don't want the mess. I don't want to be called a racist. I don't want to be called a sexist. My background isn't perfect. So if I ruffle feathers, they're going to pull some clip on me and call me this or call me that. So I'm just going to go. So it becomes a race to the bottom. Like, you and I have an opportunity to have a platform to speak our mind. And people can watch and they can say, oh, Pete, that guy's great, or Pete, that guy's he's the worst. And they're afforded that possibility. Most people, and that's why our job is to speak as loudly, boldly, and unafraid as possible, exactly what you think, without filter. Because most people can't do that. If you're a nurse or you're a police officer or you're a line worker or whatever, if you speak up on the wrong side of an issue, people will come after you. Your employer might come after you. You might be deemed as something. It's even worse, I would say, at some level for Democrats if they wanted to speak honestly. Like, if you
They
want to
can't.
really
They're
cut against the
ideologically
grain, are you
captured
really
by
gonna start
the far
saying,
left.
You know what? We shouldn't. Those books that are in the libraries about the trans kids, like, or gay sex, like, maybe we just leave that out for the third graders. How about we don't do that? The machine comes down on you and says, you're not a Democrat, you're a fake. It's just like the issue of abortion or something like, you're not a real Democrat if you believe that. You can't believe that.
Yeah.
So I think there are plenty of, but you see people like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Elon Musk, I think maybe even Mark Zuckerberg. Who knows if he's had a revelation recently or not? I'm hoping he's swallowing a big old red pill, but probably not. Who knows? He's probably just looking out for his ass. But
I'd say that's highly
I think that's
likely.
probably right, right? Yeah, but he did say that the Trump thing. You know, he was badass to get up and do it. So we'll see.
He did write that letter the other day.
I have a theory that he's probably trying to. It's risk mitigation for his company. But there are more and more free thinkers, Democrats, who are saying, I'm not in for this censorship stuff. I'm not in for this groupthink stuff. I'm not in for this kid stuff. What's up with the kids?
See, that's what really gets me, Pete. All this trans shit, race shit, whatever. Like, it bugs me. It really bothers me, but it's always been a thing. It's always going to be a thing. This kid shit, though.
Yep.
This, like, turning pedophiles into, like, some kind of sexual preference that everybody's okay with. I do not know how you can be down with that. I got family that votes this way. It disgusts me. Like, you are wanting to put fucking pedophiles on the map and make it okay to molest
I don't
my
know how you
fucking
can do that.
kids. And that's not cool. And I don't see anybody speaking up for it on that side of the aisle. And it just enrages me.
He's not a good pick
Like
for
all these other things.
Trump's policies,
you wanna do that?
unless he proves
You
us
wanna-
wrong, Floyd.
Even the gender stuff, in the surgeries on 8-year-olds.
If you're a grown adult,
Yeah, I don't like. Who cares, man? But this stuff, like, you are making it legal to take the innocence of a child and ruin their entire life. I mean, time after time after time.
I mean,
on this show, I talk.
his score.
I can't believe how many
Pretty low.
How many people were molested as kids?
Right, what
and
is
these
this
people
fool
are trying to
saying?
make it okay.
We are happy, Anthony.
trying to make it normal.
What are we supposed to be unhappy about? Oh, Trump chose a few pro-Israel people that's been in every cabinet for the last 50 years. We all knew that was going to happen. What are we unhappy about? What should we be unhappy about? He gave a UN ambassador who's pro-Israel. Mike Waltz is pro-Israel. Mike Huckabee is pro-Israel. Okay. We're getting other great picks. I'm happy. What the fuck are you crying about? You rather Kamala? You really would rather a Kamala Harris administration? If that's the case, then I don't know what to tell you. That just means you're brain dead. I don't know what are we supposed to be unhappy about? Explain to me. Like, give me something. Instead of just coming in, I hope you're all happy. You're going to get your reward, more to come. What is your problem? What do you have a problem with so far? Is it the Israel stuff? Okay. We get it. Come on, give me something of substance. Fuck, dude. Like, you offer nothing. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you to give me some substance. What do you have for me? Is that all you got? Come on. Give me some real complaints. Give me some real criticisms. Other than Israel, we get it. You're mad about the Israel picks. What else you got? What's wrong with Pete here? Because Pete's a very great pick. I'm a veteran. My father is still currently in. Every veteran I've talked to is extremely happy with this pick. So if that's your problem, I don't know what the deal is. What else you got? Okay. That's what I thought.
A sexual preference. We should accept this shit. What the fuck are you talking about?
Dude's a freaking loser, man.
What's the phrase? Inacademic minor attracted persons?
Yeah, maps.
Maps. That's how it always starts, right? Some kooky report
Yeah, they
that
pushed
we
the bar.
talk about
They
on
pushed
Fox
the bar.
about some professor that said it over here, like, oh, that's so crazy. And then you realize, oh my goodness, that's
Spreading.
Now they're
Now
defending
this state's
it.
doing
And
it. Now this state's doing it.
well, exactly. and it becomes a race to the bottom. For California does it first, and then Minnesota, because it really wants to be like California, does it too, and then New Jersey does it, and then pretty soon you got like a dozen states. You're like, what? I don't understand it. I think it's.
Is that showing up?
Come
in
on,
the schools
Anthony.
Yet?
What else you got, dude?
No, not that I'm aware of in K
sexual
through 12.
preference
I'm waiting.
classes?
No, but think about it. If you're, I mean, so in some ways, yes. I mean, if you're,
Is that going to be the next letter in the LGBTQ plus? Is that the plus?
well, I don't know. I don't think we can define the plus. It's just a plus.
Anyone who unironically calls Trump supporters Trumpies is an automatically gay piece of shit. Like, you're automatically gay. Like, come up with something better, dude.
But if you start with first grade, starting to question whether you are a boy or a girl, let's just sort of start there and say it's fluid. And then, you're getting to third, fourth grade, and then it's like, well, boys and girls can be attracted to different boys and girls. And then it's books in the library about what does it like to explore with a boy or explore with a girl. And that's maybe sixth grade. And then
Anybody
in eighth
who
grade, it used to be
promotes
sex
those
ed
books,
was like, hey, or eighth,
this
ninth,
Trumpy
10th,
is very happy. Same here, fluid.
premarital sex,
It
it comes with.
He's got nothing of substance. He has no real valid criticisms. He can't even produce anything else than whatever nonsense coping he's doing. I'm very happy too. I think we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be just fine. We would have suffered greatly of another 4 years of Biden politics.
Risk, you can get pregnant, use a condom, whatever that was on the sliding scale. Well, what do you think it is now? Do you think it's just, my dad taught sex ed in public high school in the 1980s. Like, I know my dad is the most wonderful human being I know. I know he's playing it straight. I know he's not adding some theology or he's saying the stuff the curriculum requires him to say, plus probably, hey, the best thing you can do is avoid premarital sex if you don't want to get pregnant, you don't want to get STDs. But if you do, he's not putting condoms on bananas and doing weird stuff. He's just playing it. These days, what's mandated in the curriculum is an introduction of, well, different people can be attracted to different things and want different things. And, what does consent look like? And that's, consent is obviously something important to talk about, but it all gets very, very
My
muddy.
peak
and
concurrent viewers was 92 and 1,000
so the point
views.
of the education system, it shouldn't be to
the best
explore
live
each
stream
other's
I've done so far.
sexuality ad nauseum. The point, I thought, was to just make sure you're not having,
I think I
you're
pissed
not
a lot of
having
people off
unwanted
with my
pregnancies.
ranting.
That's what they said it was.
Dumbass, but
and STDs. So they're teaching kids about responsible sex, which should always have been the function of parents at home. But you've got broken families and all of that. So I'm not saying they're pushing minor attracted persons in first grade, but if you're teaching
They're damn near it.
hypersexualized topics, and there's people that are way more informed on this
it's
than
grooming.
me, but we touch on it in the book all the way through the pipeline, then you're introducing the idea of sexuality early and earlier.
It's grooming.
Which only creates problems for everybody involved. That's the biggest reason we left New Jersey. We were going to leave anyway, and we were already out of the government schools. But the idea that this stuff is being
All right,
peddled
I
and
have
pushed.
watched the rest
No,
of
you can-
this. We're gonna get his final thoughts, and I want to go through some of Trump's new picks because he's pushing out picks like crazy right now. And that'll be the final thing we do in this stream.
I mean, iteratively over time, over hundreds of years, an institution founded on one thing became something else. And we have that job, culture protection for people of faith and conservatives and Christians and patriots is key. Once you give on one thing, this aspect of the First Amendment or this aspect of the Second Amendment, or we're going to start doing a little bit of DEI, a little
They're
bit.
gonna want more and more and more.
You just keep giving, and pretty soon you give your way all the way to we have no defense anymore.
Yeah.
Let's just see it time and time again.
Yeah. Well, I like planting these seeds because
It's good. It's a good idea.
we're looking for ideas, and just watch it grow and
Well, it's spoken like a businessman.
Yeah.
Why
All
not
the
make a
people
little
that
money while we
stayed in
educate
for the
kids?
full stream, I really appreciate you. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the subs.
well, Pete, I know
I got a little bit more I'm gonna do
time
here.
straight, and I just really appreciate you coming out.
likewise.
And what a great conversation. I hope to see you again.
Well, I appreciate everything you've done. You continue to do, and thank you for giving voice to those Raven 23 guys. And being I can't, like I told you, I can't tell you how many guys said you gotta sit down with Shawn and see what he's doing there. You got huge respect, and you know that. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everything you stand
He
for.
does.
All right,
I love
Pete.
Shawn
You got
Ryan.
it. Thanks, brother.
All right. So, an hour and 42 minutes, and we had a lot of people in here at one point. Definitely the best live stream I've done. We're gonna go through some of these picks. He's dropped a few new picks during this time. So it looks like Tulsi Gabbard is going to be the National Intelligence Director, which I'm very happy with that pick. I wish she would have ended up in a different spot. I wanted her to be Secretary of State. That would have made a lot of the anti-war base and the people that are freaking out about the Israel picks happy. But I think she's a good choice to be in the cabinet. So I'm really happy with this pick. Let's see who else we got.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense.
All right, shut up. We just watched that about Pete. Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff is Dan Scavino. That's interesting. Stephen Miller is Deputy Chief of... Oh, no. Homeland Security Advisor. I thought that was Noam, or is she Secretary? I don't remember. Deputy Chief of Staff for Legislative, Political, and Public Affairs is James Blair. Okay, I see here. Stephen Miller is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security. I'm not really worried about that one. Likely pick. So it still has yet to be confirmed that Marco Rubio is Secretary of State. So I'm still not gonna say that that's what it is, but it's looking likely. But that still hasn't been confirmed by Trump camp. So I'm not jumping the gun and calling him that until it's official. I really don't want it to be official, but I'm not going to cry about it. I mean, there could be worse picks, and like I've told others, I'm praying he proves us wrong if he ends up becoming the pick. I'm not going to be like Anthony. It's like, oh, I hope you're happy. I'm pretty happy. I mean, overall, still building a pretty significant cabinet, especially for the issues that I care about, which is defense, which is one of the most important issues right now, considering what's going on in the world. And a lot of people are mad about Susie Wiles. I get it. I understand why you're mad. However, we kind of need that swamp creature who is very close with the lobbyists to push Trump's policies through. Trump is not going to get a single policy through Congress without the lobbyists. And this is the person who's going to get those through, regardless of what you feel about her. You got to have some swamp creatures to work in that city, unfortunately. Did they update this anymore, or are they still trying to pretend we don't have the House? Yeah. Dude, I hate Fox News now. They're so whack. But we are getting the House, it looks like. Just not as big of a majority as I'd hoped. Which, I'm not going to get into it. I think there's some cheating going on. I think we had a larger majority than it's coming out to be. But overall, I'm really happy with the Tulsi Gabbard pick. I wanted her in a more pivotal position. But I'll take something. A Director of National Intelligence is actually a dig at the people that have been spying on her. So that's probably going to be a good pick. I can't really... He hasn't... Oh, Matt Gaetz. He chose Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Are they pointing that out? Yep. We can watch this real quick. I don't know. Look at this smile.
But it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate
Dude, Biden
it.
is so out of it.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Watch this smile.
So there are a lot of things to get.
So I watched the video. I think Trump asked him, do you want to answer their questions? And Biden said, nah. Dude, Biden doesn't give a shit right now. They gonna talk about Matt Gaetz or what?
In that response. But I don't think they're going to dig a lot into the future policy.
No. All right. So President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday announced Representative Matt Gaetz as his pick for Attorney General. If confirmed, Gaetz will head up the Justice Department after Trump is sworn in for his second term in January. Try not to burp. Cool. He announced it on Truth. He is a champion for the Constitution and rule of law. And I verified it earlier during the interview with Shawn Ryan while that was going on, that Matt Gaetz was on the House Judiciary Committee, and he's now the top cop. So that's very interesting. I think Matt Gaetz will go to the mat for Trump. I think that's a good pick. It's an interesting pick. I wasn't expecting that for that position, but I like it. Okay. Well, I got to get ready for work. I can't think of anything else here. Thank you so much, everybody who subscribed. I see I got like 8 subs or 6, 7 subs. A bunch of likes. My highest concurrent viewer in this stream was 92. 1,000 something views altogether. 21 likes. I appreciate it. If anybody is new in here and wants to like the stream and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Overall, to the people that stuck around the whole show, I appreciate that. This was pretty cool. I'm probably going to be doing another live stream tonight when I get off work and after I leave the gym. Probably just an hour live stream. But like I said, I am trying to do at least 2 or at least 1 live stream, preferably 2 live streams a day, 1 around this time and then 1 late at night. So I'm gonna try to do another one. Yeah, thank you for all the likes, thank you for the subs, the views, the chat, except for Anthony, you're whack. Floyd, you're cool. The Wiseman, I know you, I've seen you plenty of times, you're awesome. Kaya, thank you. Other than that, peace out.